Deathstalker, he's the man with lots of old RPGs that are gold. He's Deathstalker.
Welcome to the Random Encounter Show. I'm Deathstalker V, coming in for our weekly episode of Table Talk. Yeah, make sure you have something to drink. Come catch a seat at the table with me. We've got a long episode this week. I don't know exactly where all we're going. I've got books lined up here that I think we want to talk about. But our main topic this week is how could a Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth licensed, Tolkien licensed RPG ever fade into relative obscurity or be largely forgotten? Yeah, that's the question. You guys know I love obscure, forgotten RPGs because that's where I find so many of my hidden gems. So, just getting to it, we're going to be diving into Decipher Incorporated's The Lord of the Rings Roleplaying Game. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions about this game that I've had to sit down. I've created some characters. I've messed around with the mechanics. I've studied through the book in detail. I've compared notes. I've asked questions from some of the developers of the game of just what happened with this game. Also, we'll probably be diving off and talk a little bit about Tolkien's works. We'll also be diving off into other role-playing games licensed for Middle-earth as well. And we'll be talking about some solo gaming. Yeah, for Middle-earth gaming. I don't know where all we're going. We're going to try to keep the chaos to a minimum. Good luck, because it's already starting. Before we dive off into all this fully, though, I've got to give a big thank you to all of our new subscribers coming into the show. And I've got to give a huge shout out to the Random Encounter Army. Those of you who have stuck through for a while now. If you're new here, you probably don't realize it just yet, but you're being press-ganged into the Random Encounter Army, into our community. Once you hit that subscribe button, you're in. Yeah, I'm sorry no one told you. Yeah. If you're new, don't forget that you can check the links below. We have a Facebook page and we have a Facebook group where you can get more directly involved with the community and sharing your hobbies and your love for gaming, etc. We'd love to hear from you. In fact, we're gonna put in our last reminder about the holiday special because I'm getting so many questions and comments and such about the holiday special. So I said, let's answer all the questions we can and do a quick reminder. First off, the holiday special is coming due. Yeah, the cutoff date is December 20th. If you're wondering what the holiday special is, you can go back and check out last year's episode here on our channel. The holiday special is all about the community, the Random Encounter Army, friends of the show, guests, companies we love, etc. All coming together during the holidays and just shining as a community. Last year blew me away. Yeah, it was such a beautiful episode. So I'm so excited to see what we're all going to do this year. Remember, it's all up to you. All of you out there is a community of what we have going on. So we open up the mailbox to cards and letters and gifts or whatever it is you may want to send to the Fortress of Doom. And we also open up our emails and such for video submissions, which I absolutely love. Yeah, I think that those might be my favorite things. But whatever it is, you know, if you want to get involved, make sure that you do. You can contact the Facebook page, yeah, on the About channel or on the link down below. You can find that, or you can email me, questingtablestudio@gmail.com. I do not put my email in any comments or any descriptions or anything because, as you know, one day after doing it, I'm attacked by the swarm of bots from YouTube. Yeah, they've got cures for reptile dysfunction, and they can send me back to school for 20 years. I don't know. Yeah, no thanks. I've never had reptile dysfunction. I've stayed in the primate family for my existence. Just ask my wife. anyways, it's just the time that we open up to the community and let all the true stars of this show shine. We're going to premiere it on Friday, December 22nd. If we film it on the 20th, that'll give me a day or two to do some editing and get it uploaded. That way, the weekend before the Christmas holidays, you all have somewhere to come and somewhere to be. Right? Because that's what it's about. Anyways, if you got any questions, you can, of course, email me, shoot me a Facebook message, whatever it takes. I'll help you out that we can get you part of this special. We've already had some submissions, and I'm very excited this year. I'm very excited. Anyways, let me get something to drink. I still got the dry throat and stuffy nose. Probably have it till about next May. Yeah? Anyways, here we go. Let's talk about the Lord of the Rings role-playing game from Decipher. I'm very curious of just why this game's so largely forgotten by not only the RPG community, but also the Tolkien Middle-earth fan club community. Yeah? I've looked around online. I find some things here and there from the early 2000s to about 2012, 2014, of a few people still talking about this game. I ran into a website, if I can find it again, I'll put a link down below, in which they still have a community that plays this game, and it contains a lot of the corrections and such to the text there on the website. So there's still definitely some fans of this game. But overall, this game's nowhere near remembered as much as something like Middle-earth role-playing games from Iron Crown Enterprises. It's nowhere near on the level of the One Ring, no matter who's published it. So, yeah. And looking at a game that is sort of obscure or largely forgotten, you know, one thing we know is it went out of print. That can obviously lead to it being sort of forgotten. But even so, other games that are set in licensed by Tolkien and set in the Middle-earth universe, they're not largely forgotten. Middle-earth role-playing game, which I consider, and I think others would as well, justifiably, was the greatest role-playing game so far set in Middle-earth. Yeah? And it was the longest running. It was so good, in fact, that Peter Jackson actually used some materials, I think from some of the campaign setting and adventure modules, to flesh out some scenes of his movies. So being forgotten, that I can't say that it would be forgotten just because it went out of print, because obviously Middle-earth RPG MERP went out of print even before this, and is still really beloved to this day. If I can speak English. Forgive me, guys. Another thing is I was curious about is maybe the system is terrible. You know, the actual rules and the mechanics. Maybe they were so bad that people just generally rejected this game. So, like I said, I wanted to dig into this book. I wanted to see what it had to offer. I rolled up some characters. I ran some combat. I played some few small scenarios, just so I could get an idea for how it actually plays on the table. And just in general, I really like the system in this book. It's definitely not a bad system. There was definitely nothing terribly wrong with the system. So maybe it was down to marketing. I don't know. The one thing I do know, and I think I also know the reason that it didn't do so well. We'll get to that in a second, because they both have to do with the same thing. But there's one thing I do know, that this game was released at a time when there was probably no better time for a Lord of the Rings role-playing game to be released. Why is that? Well, there's two things we have to look at. First is the RPG community, or the RPG industry at the time. what was going on with the hobbies. Uh, in the year 2000, third edition hit, and it completely revitalized tabletop gaming just across the board. You know, in my lifetime, uh, even though D&D is more mainstream nowadays than it was then, back then I think that was the time that I saw the most actual players at the table than any other time. You know, today we have a D&D culture, or dungeons, or a nerd culture, where it's a whole lot of people that wear the t-shirts and buy the books, but most of them, I mean, well, I can't say most, I don't know, I hate blanket statements, but there seems to be quite a few that's never actually sat down and played the games that they're sharing in the nerddom about. Yeah? Maybe some of you've noticed that as well. But back then, there really wasn't a D&D culture per se. We didn't have the TV shows. We had E.T., you know, where they played D&D. I mean, in my lifetime, that was the biggest on-screen moment for D&D up until relatively recently. But we had E.T., but we didn't have the TV shows. We didn't have all the stuff. We were just general nerds. People were more into Star Wars, Star Trek kind of thing. And other novels and such. TV shows and such. But, yeah, we had more people playing at the table. At that time, though, we're thinking 2002, D&D was massive. Role-playing games were massive again. It had revitalized it. It had brought people back to the table. It had got multitudes playing for the first time. So that would be a great time to get an RPG on the market, right? Within that time period. Yes. The other thing going was the fact that in 2001, Peter Jackson released The Fellowship of the Ring, the part 1 of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It was a massive movie, guys. I went and seen it opening day in a theater with my gaming friend Eddie, and I think even my mother went to see it. Yeah, that was how big it was. And it exploded. The world caught on fire for fantasy, for Tolkien, for Lord of the Rings. It just created a whole new generation of fantasy fans and fantasy gamers. Yeah? So it seems like this would probably, with just those two things going on with this release, it seems like it would propel this game just sky high. It didn't. Overall, when it comes to this system, I believe it was the time it was released that also worked against it. Yeah? When this game was released, we talked about D&D 3rd edition. It was hot, guys. And the D20 era was just in full swing in 2002. Every gaming product was D20, 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 D20. We've talked about this before. Yeah, that you couldn't walk into a gaming store and not be blinded by D20 squares on books and such. D20 systems, D20 compatible, etc., etc., etc. It was, the clones had started up. I mean, it was just D20 wild. Yeah? I think that worked against this book. I mean, you got to realize that D20 was so big that other role-playing games, even ones that had been around since the 70s, like Traveller, reissued a new edition as a D20 game. On a D20 Traveller. Okay, that's how big it was, though. That other role-playing games that had been out before 3rd edition was ever dreamt of swapped over to being a D20. This not being a D20 system, I think, was probably one of the biggest contributing factors to why people didn't pay it much attention, if I'm just honest. Another thing this game might have had working against it, but probably not so greatly as it not being a D20 game, was that it was following in the footsteps of a giant. This was the second ever published licensed Tolkien RPG. The first being MERP, Middle-earth Role-Playing. It was out for 20 years. It was massive. It was on the greatest RPG mechanics or game rule system that I've ever come across, which belongs to Iron Crown Enterprises, Rolemaster, MERP, Cyberspace, Space Master, Harp, you name it. All of their RPGs were on this open-ended D100 system. Yeah? If you ask Deathstalker V, it's the greatest, most ingenious system ever created. I will argue all the way to my grave. The universal D100 rolls, the level of detail that went into the games, etc. Yeah? Well, we'll get into that in just a very few episodes. I've got Rolemaster over here because we're going to talk a little bit about it soon. But, yeah. And it was a giant of a game. Most people regard it as the greatest Tolkien licensed RPG that's ever been published. I am one of them. There are many people out there that when they think of the greatest role-playing games of all times, MERP, or Middle-earth role-playing games, makes the list. Yeah, that's what a game it was. If you guys have never seen MERP, you missed out. I currently don't own MERP. Yeah? When I lost my gaming collection from the divorce back in 2008 through 2010. Terrible time. I never went back and bought the MERP stuff because I can't justify the prices. Yeah? Maybe if I went back and started really hunting it, I could find it. But I just can't justify it. I think it's the price, but the fact that MERP is just a very cut down version of Rolemaster. Yeah? That there's nothing MERP offered other than the campaign material and licensed Tolkien stuff that Rolemaster didn't already offer, plus a heck of a lot more. So I don't own MERP, yeah? But I definitely played it back in the day. I definitely enjoyed it. It was a fantastic system. So in 2002, those that enjoyed role-playing games set in Middle-earth, they went from MERP to this. And while I actually think this is a fantastic system, and I actually really like this system, it definitely is not Middle-earth role-playing by Iron Crown Enterprises. So I think those two factors, that it's not a D20 game, and that people coming from MERP had expectations that almost no game could initially match or meet based on what came before, I think this sort of doomed this game in many ways. Doing some research online, I did see that Decipher had the old, like the brother-in-law involved in embezzling from the company. That happened to them. When I think back in my time for marketing, because I can't find any market research data on this game, but when I think about back in 2002, 2003, 2004, when this game should have been on store shelves, hey, this was toward the end of high school for me. We had cars, we were going out to game stores and various places around us, we were going to small conventions, we went to Dragon Con in Atlanta, etc. I never once remember seeing this book on any shelves. Yeah, I know for sure that none of my gaming friends, and I had a pretty large circle of gaming friends at the time, none of them were playing this, and I never heard anybody talking about it. In fact, I knew nothing about this game up until a couple of years ago when I'm not sure, I think it was the Maps of Middle-earth they published for this game as a pack that came across my radar and made me aware, so I got somewhat interested in this. Yeah? So just in general, what's my thoughts on this game? And would I say that this game is worth hunting down nowadays? Yeah? I got some mixed feelings about this game. So, you know me, we're going to dig into it. We're going to look at what I consider the good, bad, and the ugly, and all that kind of stuff. First things first, upon getting this game, I got it a few years ago in a trade. I got the book, and I'm going to just flip through here. I'll bring a few up close so you can check it out. As you can see, though, the artwork for this game, 99% of the artwork is literally just stills from the Fellowship of the Ring movie. Yeah? So that automatically put a worry or a fear in my mind that these books, or this role-playing game, would be based on the movies instead of Tolkien's actual written works. Upon investigation, I was overjoyed to find that it's absolutely not the case. Yes, they used a ton of movie stills in this game on the pages of the books, but Decipher, in their license with Tolkien, they got permission to use material from, of course, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And they incorporated it well within this system. Okay? When I'm going to talk about this system, we're not really going to be doing a review here. I can't do a review on the system, to be honest. I do have this core book. And when it's a core book, it does a fantastic job at being a core book. But to be fair, when looking at role-playing games, you should be able to take into account some of the supplements and some of the materials that were outside of the core book. Of course, they have a lot of... I have to say, it looks pretty handsome. The supplements and box sets and such they made for you. I'm eyeing the Moria set, the Two Towers set. There's a lot of the maps of Middle-earth. I'm eyeing that stuff because that stuff looks really handsome, to be honest with you. I would love to dig into it. So it's not fair to really judge an entire system based off the core book, but I can tell you what we got in the core book. As far as materials go, for the campaign setting of Middle-earth, they could pull from these two books. Now that leaves a lot to be wanted for a lot of Middle-earth fans, because they're not able to pull from all the other works of J.R.R. Tolkien or his son Christopher Tolkien, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but you know, one thing they did have access to, we have it here, is in the Lord of the Rings in Volume 3, The Return of the King, there were indices, or appendices, I should say. And in these appendices, Tolkien recorded a lot of the history of Middle-earth, along with cultural notes and such on the peoples of Middle-earth. That's something that they pulled well from for this game. In fact, when you open up the game, actually I should show this. The end papers for these books. Very, very nice maps of Middle-earth. 2 different maps on each side of the book for the end papers. I love details like that, guys. I'm a book collector, so I notice things about books. When you open this book up, though, first thing you're going to get is a general introduction to Lord of the Rings and role-playing games. Yeah, nothing very special, to be honest. If I was a new player, I would find it a little bit wanting. But as soon as you get past that and past a glossary that defines a lot of the terms used in the game, now that's actually helpful being up front, so that you can get an idea for if you're brand new to role-playing games, for what some of this stuff means. Even though I'm more used to a glossary being in the back of the book. But the very first chapter, past the introduction, we get there and back again. Yeah? And for a core book, you know, for just a core book, I'm very impressed at what they did here. They gave a full glossary atlas of all the places in Middle-earth, or many of the places, not of course all of them, but all the major places, all the major lands and such. And they included in it a lot of notes and little bits of history and culture, so that you could be able to incorporate it within your game. And it covers, like I said, it covers a great deal of Middle-earth. In fact, let's see. We're still turning. It's going to incorporate 35 pages, minus maybe 3 pages or 4 pages for the glossary and index. So, like I said, for a core rulebook, you really don't expect them to put that much material in there. You usually wait for a companion or a supplement to fill in all the sort of campaign setting. At the end of sort of the glossary and atlas, you get a full map of Middle-earth. And I have to say, it's a spectacular map. Very handsome map to go with. Now, here's where we get into the meat and potatoes of this game. And it is character creation. And one thing I will say while I'm thinking about it, because you know we don't have a script around here, is yes, they use movie stills from the game, but I think they actually did a fantastic job of incorporating them as artwork in the book here. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Normally when a company does something like this, it's absolutely atrocious. But they knocked it out of the park using the movie stills. In fact, for prime example, I knew Decipher, not for their role-playing games. They had a Star Trek game and this Lord of the Rings game on their Coda system, C-O-D-A. We're going to talk more about that soon. But I didn't know anything about their RPGs. What I did know about was their trading card games. They had Lord of the Rings and the Star Trek one, of course. And I think there was another one they had before them. But I had seen their trading card games around game stores and such. And for Lord of the Rings and Star Trek in general, they used a lot of movie stills and such. And for me, they didn't do nowhere near as a nice job as they did with these books, because the cards just look a little bit off-putting, especially when you see things like Magic the Gathering that's just beautifully illustrated, and the cards got a lot of detail and such to it. So, yeah, they knocked it out of the park with putting the movie stills in here. Talking about the Coda system and talking about this book in particular, a massive amount of this book is dedicated to player creation. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to tell you, because I found it amazing before we get off into the system. This is why we don't have a script, so you can sit here bored while I'm poking around. It's we're almost there. We're almost there. Yeah, I would say that at least 150 pages of this 300-page rule book is dedicated strictly to character creation. Now, before we talk about character creation, I wanted to talk about the Coda system. It is not a D20 system. In fact, no D20 is used whatsoever. It's actually a 2D6 system, 6-sided die. I found that interesting, and really looking at it and everything, I realized that the system, for the system mechanics, they most remind me of classic Traveler with its 2D6 mechanics. You know that you're going to take your modifiers from your character and from the situation your character's in. You're going to add or subtract those to a 2D6 roll and compare them to a target number for success or failure in the game. I love the 2D6 system. I love Traveler. It's one of my favorite solo RPGs. I like it a lot here for Lord of the Rings. It's a little more complex, or really, I hate using the word complex. The system's a little bit more detailed than many versions of Traveler. Not terribly, and some versions of Traveler go well beyond this. But I'm talking about just the mechanics themselves with the modifiers and what goes into the modifiers and such. But the one thing to know is that the 2d6 versus the target number roll handles everything in this game. It's a universal mechanic, from combat to casting magic to generating characteristics for your player characters, to handling situations in game like jumping off a tree limb or whatever you're going to do. Everything's handled by this roll. All you need is a target number in which to compare your roll to for success or failure. I think that's very easy to understand. That being said, that it's got a mechanic system very similar to Traveler, the rest of the game very much feels like 3rd edition D&D in many ways. Character creation. is very much a D&D 3rd edition feel to it. The weird thing about this game is that it is set up like a class and level system. It has the classes, but it does not have the levels. Instead, the leveling system goes more like Traveler does, where you improve skill ranks and attributes as you go along. For 3rd edition, though, you're going to, when you roll up a character in this game, you're going to generate your attributes and such, according to this game. The one thing I will say that I do not like about this game is that character creation is terribly organized. Yeah, it's all over the place. You're flipping back and forth. There's all these little nuances and this modifier and that and this racial ability. And it's just all over the book and you're trying to pull it together. And do you think having a very complex, to many, character creation, do you think that they put in a clear outline, step-by-step, or even good examples of how it's done? No, they didn't. So that was a big failure here for this system for me. And I wanted to just talk briefly about something. Is that I saw on YouTube, I looked this up because I said, surely there's more people that know about this game than there seems to be. But there's literally like 4 or 5 videos about this system on YouTube. But I did see some people talking about it. And they were talking about how crunchy this game actually is. And it made me sit back and think about that for a moment, being a YouTuber myself. And I sometimes it's hard for me to remember. It really is. That this system, games like this, D&D, Lord of the Rings, Traveler and stuff like that, I don't consider them very crunchy at all, to be honest. But I realize that I've got sort of a skewed outlook. I very much enjoy games like Rolemaster, for example, RuneQuest, and other various games that other people consider so crunchy that they don't enjoy. So when I look at things like this game, it never crossed my mind that this was very crunchy at all in any manner. So just keep that in mind when I talk about games being complex or detailed or whatever, that hey, I might be a little bit skewed if you're coming from the world of just playing like 5th edition D&D or something. Yeah, to me, it's character creation's not hard to pick up on. But I think that's very much due to just having a lot of experience creating characters in many different systems in which this one resembles in many ways. Especially 3rd edition and 3.5 D&D. But I could see very much so that a new player coming to this game or someone that's not familiar with the 3rd edition structure of creating a character, how it could just be totally confusing, and because there's really no good examples and no outlines, that it could just be mind-numbing in ways. I get that. Anyways, I find some things interesting, though, with character creation. You've got your primary attributes. They give you a few different optional ways of doing this. But just overall, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't seem like it's going to affect the outcome so much. But just looking at the main way of doing it, I followed along with character creation. I found it interesting that you've got your primary attributes. You've got bearing, nimbleness, perception, strength, wits, and vitality. Your main 6. But then you had secondary attributes, which are what they call reaction attributes. These are actually combinations of your primary. You have stamina, swiftness, willpower, defense, wisdom, and health. In a lot of ways, you could think of these secondary attributes as like saving throws almost in D&D, partially. Yeah, I find it interesting, like stamina, for example. Stamina is the attribute you would go to that if you're doing your toughness, basically, to withstand pain, poison, sicknesses, the environment, cold, heat, and such. Swiftness, getting out of the way of things. willpower, your ability to overcome fear and corruption and such. Wisdom is like your common sense and your perception. Your defense is combat, obviously, avoiding blows and such. And then you have your actual health that represents wounds you take in the game. I find that very interesting because they're not just like saving throws, but like stamina, for example. You could use your stamina throws to test, like if you're running long distances and such. Do you see what I mean there? So yeah, having the primary and secondary attributes is a neat little balance, I think, for your characters. One thing about this game I have to commend it on, and we're going to get back to it soon, is that this is a very much epic, heroic scale game. This game is very much written in the way heroes are represented in Tolkien's work within Middle-earth. So like here, in character creation, they put in the quality of heroes with example text from the text themselves. So things like compassion, responsibility, generosity, honesty, fairness, honor and nobility, restraint, self-sacrifice, valor, and wisdom. These are placed in here, and I absolutely love it because this game very much gears itself toward the storytelling in the style of Tolkien, and it also brings out the role playing from the characters themselves. This game's very much a game where you're not just a player character in the world going around willy-nilly doing whatever. It's very much that your character has the ability to step up and be a world-changing hero in some form or fashion. And that's exactly what they should do. We'll get more into this in a minute, but I absolutely love that aspect. I love how closely it sticks to what feels like a Tolkien-esque RPG. That's one thing like MERP. While it has some great campaign material and it did a great job of fleshing out Middle-earth, in the end, it felt just like an RPG in Middle-earth. It really didn't feel like I was taking part of a actual story I would find that maybe even Tolkien himself could have written. Anyways, for character creation, as we said, it's a class and level system. We're going to turn over here. There's a whole lot on attributes and how to use them and how to use them for role-playing. We get into the races then. The free peoples is who it focuses on. You have your Khazad, or the dwarves. By the way, here's your big warning for all you Middle-earth nerds out there. I'm not a huge Middle-earth nerd. I'm going to mispronounce just about everything in this book probably, so please forgive me. Yeah, I love Tolkien's works. I've read them since I was a kid. I've had this 50th anniversary since I was probably around, 8 years old. My grandmother found it for me. It's just one of the premier books of my collection. Yeah, I'm not going to pull it out. We're already in here for, 40 minutes almost? My goodness. Anyways, forgive me my mispronunciation, but you got your dwarves. And it gives you really nice histories and cultures of dwarves along with your mechanical modifiers. Absolutely love it. You've got your Eldar, or elves. Not only do you just get elves, you get them broken down to the Noldor, the Sindar, the Sylvan cultures. And again, each culture entry is broken down into culture and lore, skills, all this kind of stuff. Everything you need to really understand your character. You get hobbits, you get the Falahides, the Harfoots, the Stores. You get men, you get the Dunedain, the Middle Peoples, the Men of Darkness, the Wild Men. Yes, so they really, for a core book, they're really pulling in a lot of the lore and culture of Middle-earth into this single product. Then you get into what their classes or professions are, but that is orders. The orders include Barbarian, Craftsman, Loremaster, Magician, Mariner, Minstrel, Noble, Rogue, and Warrior. Sort of your archetypal Middle-earth character classes, you could say, or professions. I actually like the selection here. The Mariner seems a little bit weird because when you think of Middle Earth, you don't really think about ocean going or river going adventures, even though the Lord of the Rings, a major part of the book, what were they doing? They were going down the river, right? But if you think of other ages and other times and other places in Middle Earth, just like I know it's horrible, guys. I know it's terrible. Everybody hates it. I'm not a huge fan of it myself, to be honest. But the Ring of Power, the Rings of Power, whatever it is Amazon spewing out under their Tolkien license, I could see in that kind of story where the elves are going back and forth between the two lands, and you have sort of the mariner cultures and stuff where that class is actually imported in this book. But that would be outside of the scope of what you could find in The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. But interesting, they included it. And there were some mariners and such in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So definitely have their places. Just like 3rd edition, each class is going to get its modifiers. Each class is going to get its skills that it can choose from. And they've included order skills, and they've included skill packages to make character creation a little bit easier. And thank God I was able to use them instead of just going all over this book. The book contains a good amount of skills to give your characters. Each order has certain skills that you have available, just like 3rd edition D&D. It's a little more free and open than D&D. Yeah? With the skills and abilities, but it's still structured very much like a class system. Once you have that, you can improve your attributes, you can improve your skills or learn new skills. Once you have enough experience points built up, you can actually cash them in to gaining sort of elite orders. The elite orders is Archer. Let's see here. We got an Archer. We've got a Captain. We have a Knight. A Ranger. A Spy. And a Wizard. And I know a lot of ears are coming up. With these skill packages, you get a lot of new skills. Or not skill pack. These elite orders. You get access to more and more skills to add to your character. Let's talk about magic, for example. We know, according to Tolkien, how many wizards were there in Middle Earth. Did anybody say 5? I think that's correct. Radagast, Gandalf, Sauron. I mean, it was 5 wizards. So what the heck are they talking about wizards here? That one sort of spooked me at first. In fact, they stick to the material. There's actually only 5 wizards in the world of Middle Earth. The wizards here are the people that sort of apprentice themselves or learn from one of the 5 wizards within Middle Earth. Yes, so no full, that this is one of the 5 original wizard characters or whatever. I will say, once we get into this, I'm going to get past all these skills. Lots and lots of skills. Guys, we're already really deep in here. How many hours we're going to be, I don't know. I will say for the magic system here, it is by far, the best Middle Earth magic system I've seen in a role-playing game. Where MERP was mostly like sort of old school D&D magic. A lot of lightning bolts and fireballs and all this kind of stuff. The magic system in Decipher's Lord of the Rings role-playing game is very much what you would expect if you read the axe and stuff from Gandalf and whatnot in the Lord of the Rings and in the Hobbit. Almost a very subtle magic. Being able to maybe manipulate the clouds. There's dark magic. I don't know. Let me get my train of thought back here. I was actually just looking for the master spell list so I can make some examples. Goodness. Okay. It's got to be here somewhere. We're in the skills still. Here we go. Words of power and runes of might. Yeah? Look at Saruman. The magic in Middle Earth has 2 aspects you must consider. The general manipulation of magic by characters and the subtle magic found throughout the land. I love this. The magic is very subtle in ways. You have magic and you have sorcery. So your magic, the subtle magic of Middle Earth. As mentioned above, magic exists throughout Middle Earth, subtle, flavorful, and evocative. It is the key element of the setting, one the narrator, our game master, must always remain aware of, and which she can use to enhance the feel and flavor of the chronicle. Because Middle Earth is innately magical, it possesses certain qualities lacking in mundane skills. Similarly, events and occurrences take place that could not in other lands. The narrator can work these qualities and events into her stories, allowing the characters to take advantage of them or run afoul of them. So a lot of things is like, if you think like Gandalf in the movies, having the ability to create light, using his staff for light while in Moria, being able to turn the river, the running river, into like the horses running through. Being able to part the clouds and allow the light come down, during some of the battles. Stuff like this is the magic of Middle Earth in this book. Speaking to animals. Yeah. There's also sorcery that corrupts the land. It turns things dark and whatnot. Words of command. Just all kind of great stuff. I really feel like it fits Middle Earth more so than in any other RPG I've ever read. They do have some of the fireballs and lightning and such things, but they definitely fit within the sort of lore of Middle Earth, or what you would expect. When it comes to weapons and armor and magical items and such in Middle Earth, a lot of people, I think they would see that and they would think, what short list? They pulled directly from the books, yeah? And if you realize it, that there wasn't a whole lot of weapons and armors mentioned in the book. Of course, you've got your axes, your clubs, your daggers, your maces, your swords, your staves, your daggers and bows and such, spears and whatnot. But not a huge list. All of your weapons fit right there. When it comes to armor, there's even less, because nowhere did Tolkien ever mention like full plate mail suit armor or anything. So you have a lot of what you expect from the book. A lot of leather armor, scale mail, chain mail kind of stuff. So I find that almost in every way possible, they've done a great job of pulling source material and representing it well in this book. When it comes to magical items themselves, what's available in the book is things that are mentioned in Tolkien's works. Yeah? There are ways to enchant items and such if you have the ability to use magic or sorcery. But as far as a whole lot of magical treasures all over the place like we see in D&D games and such, absolutely not the case. Middle Earth magic was rare. It was everywhere, but it was very rare. And magical items that had been enchanted and all this were almost feared for the most part. There was by somebody at least, if the elves didn't fear their magic swords, but the orcs and goblins certainly did, right? Hey, this is Sting, or Christ, But yeah, it's the magic wasn't everywhere and commonly available. That's actually something that I use in almost all my role-playing games when it comes to fantasy. I can't stand having the oversaturation of magic everywhere. When it comes to what you might consider the game master part of this, because we already talked about the system, yeah? When it comes to the game master part of this book, I give it a very, very, very high rating. Yeah? I think it would be worth just about everyone that's really interested in being a game master. And even if you're just a player looking for some better role-playing, I think you would have a good lesson or two in this book. I was very surprised at what I learned. One thing when it comes to presenting the game, there's really two ways this game is presented. It's presented in a narration round, and it's presented as in action rounds. What that means, is for the most part, the game wants the game master or the game itself to flow like a story, much like Tolkien would tell. Yeah? Only when it comes down time to some fast action, maybe a combat, or maybe a very dangerous scene like jumping over a chasm or something, does it come out of the more narrative role and go into a more detailed action thing. Now, just because it's in the narrative doesn't mean you're not rolling dice and such. It's portrayed here that you have something almost akin to the way I go about playing Tunnels and Trolls. That is very abstract. You just make a roll or two to see if you pass or fail, whatever it is you're doing, and you continue the story onward. That whatever you're doing right here is not more important than stopping the telling of the story. When it comes time for some detailed combat, for example, though, it goes into the action phase. And what that means is you go into using the full system. Combat is actually pretty well fleshed out here. I like it. I actually like it more than 3rd edition. It's got a little more detail. It's nowhere near the amount of detail of things like Rolemaster or MERP and such, for example, but a little bit more detailed than 3rd edition standardly had to offer. So I absolutely love that, and I absolutely love the play of zooming in and zooming out on the story as you go on the table. Yeah? I think that's a proper way for a heroic tale to be told. Again, this system's very much geared toward epic fantasy storytelling. Yeah? Everything about this game's geared toward it. So those people coming from MERP and 3rd edition and such that are used to more of ground and pound kind of action on the table, this might have been a little bit off-putting if they didn't understand it. Another thing this game did when it comes to combat that the other games really didn't do as well. This is definitely another example of it being the best that I've seen in a Lord of the Rings role-playing game, or Middle-earth, is the use of epic scale battles. Instead of just some parties fighting each other or some one-on-one, two-on-two kind of combats here and there, this goes into full like warfare, siege engines, big battles and such. But it lets you zoom out and have as much detail as you want. You can sort of zoom out, you can zoom all the way out, and use these resolution tables to see how the battle is ongoing as you tell your tale. If the heroes have to do something, it can drop down into a very detailed account of what they're doing. Maybe, you're telling a tale and you're rolling dice, and the siege engines are moving closer and closer to wherever you're at. The walls are beginning to fall. So you have some characters that decide that they're going to, jump off the wall and onto a siege engine and cut the ropes and the supports for it so it falls apart before it can reach the wall. Maybe you do have a dwarf that says, "Toss me." I don't know. But I love it, guys. But yeah, I love how you can zoom in and out of the level of detail and how they have several subsystems to handle different situations in doing that. You get, like I said, the system does have a good amount of detail, even though it's more of a narrative style system. Just everything's geared toward epic fantasy. And at the end of the book, you get a good section. You get into the saga and grandeur, which is the elements of epic fantasy. And it's all about putting Middle-earth together, and it's all about presenting the world in the way that Tolkien would represent Middle-earth and tell the stories in Middle-earth. One thing, and I don't know enough about it because I don't have any of the adventure modules, yeah? We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but this seems like it would be more set up toward not necessarily a railroad style, but a game master who had an overall big picture story to portray at the table. Yeah, definitely not like the style we use around here for our solo games and such, which would be sandbox. But yeah, there's just tons and tons and tons of storytelling advice, setting up the world, setting up your 3-act model, the scenes, the chapters, etc. And I think it's absolutely great. They even give you rules for Tolkien-esque drama, Tolkien-esque pacing, uh, just everything you can imagine. For a core book. Yeah? I don't have any of the supplements. But just for this core book, I'm actually quite astounded at what you get. Yeah? Is it a perfect book? No. No RPG system's perfect. None. None out there. That never exists. Does it struggle in parts? I think the character creation compared to the system overall is a little too heavy, to be honest. Because it's such a narrative system and such, I think they could have presented character creation maybe more closely tied to class and level systems. I mean, it technically is a class system, but it went the third edition route for doing so, and I think that was a big problem with third edition too, was character creation was just too heavy, and it being so heavy, just naturally, you can easily look at this and tell that some of the races and some of the orders and such are really out of balance compared to others. Elves especially. Elves have pages of racial abilities compared to very few of some of the other races. Some of the orders are definitely unbalanced, but in the end you have those elite orders. Messing around with it, there was quite a few of the elite orders in which my character, I could spend extra amount of experience points instead of improving his stats or his attributes or some of his skills or their skills or whatever. I could have invested into this elite order package. I really looked at it and I didn't really see much of a benefit for doing it. You know, that it wasn't going to offer me anything that just improving what I already had wasn't going to offer me. Yeah. But in the end, because this is such a narrative style, I don't think the balance issues really matter. Yeah, because you're not. This isn't presented like a war game. This isn't presented as a very combat-heavy game, even though it has very detailed combat. This is all about the story. This is all about you creating a hero, and it's all about the game master giving you a world in which you can be that hero. Yeah? So in the end, I'm not sure if any of that kind of stuff really matters. Some of the stuff definitely could have been explained better overall. Would I say this would be something worth looking at nowadays? And the answer is absolutely yes, to be honest. You know, it may not be everybody's dive. For me, who's a mild Middle-earth nerd, this book is actually very valuable for some of the information when it comes to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and Tolkien's works. For me, especially if I wanted to play in Middle-earth. And the fact that, unlike anything else that's licensed by Tolkien, you can actually pick up this RPG really cheaply. Right now on eBay, I see used copies of this core book going between $5 and $10 in like new condition. Yeah, and that right there just tells me, look, if all you bought this and all you did was buy this for the maps and setting material, you're getting a great deal. I don't know if I'll actually look at getting the rest of the stuff. I'm interested in it, to be honest. But I'll have to think about it because you guys already know I like sticking to my core games and such. But I don't mind checking out new things. But I've just never been into RPGing in Middle-earth that heavily. I don't know. I'm sort of thinking about it, though. Digging into this has definitely got me thinking about doing some solo gaming in Middle-earth. Now, talking about solo gaming in Middle-earth. If that's something you want to do, I have a few suggestions. You may want to pick up this book for some of the setting and some. I think it's worth it for the narrator's part, the game master's advice, setting up the world, setting up the storytelling and such. So you may want to pick up this book, but I would not use the system in here for solo gaming. Not from the core book. I may be wrong. The supplement books may prove me wrong, but for solo gaming. You guys know that I like to do sandbox and such, and I like for my RPG to actually have some of the tools I want to use, whether it be NPC generators, encounter generators, monster list, map generators, whatever. There's absolutely no game master tools where you roll dice or anything in this book. All of them are geared just toward being a narrative storytelling advice. Yeah, so there's absolutely no tools in here for solo play, which is a big disappointment. Like I said, some of you guys may be familiar with this out there. You guys might say, hey, there's the narrator's guide, and it's full of tools that you can use for solo gaming. And I'm going to tell you that I'll most certainly grab it if it is. But because the core book doesn't have any, I can't recommend the core book as being something that you would use the system out of for solo play. Instead, my advice has always been that, hey, if you're interested in Middle-earth or any other franchise or whatever, world, stories, whatever, one of the things that I recommend is grab source materials. Yeah, I've got The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings here. We got the wonderful appendices. If I was very familiar with these works, I probably wouldn't have any problem setting up a role-playing campaign in Middle-earth. Better yet, I would grab some of those. I see them on Amazon and such. You know, they're like 5-volume sets of encyclopedias of Middle-earth that cover the peoples and histories and everything Middle-earth. That gives you an easy way to look up things you want information on and just drop them into your game. And you can buy maps and all kind of stuff. Like I said, I would probably use this, and I would probably combine it with maybe Castles and Crusades if I wanted to run just a really fast, simple game, especially for a group or such. You know, this is your class and level system. If you don't know about Castles and Crusades, it is my favorite edition of D&D, even though it's not Dungeons and Dragons by name. Yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot more Castles and Crusades around here. But just the Castles and Crusades system's pretty much ready to go for middle. You got your elves, dwarves. It's your typical old school D&D sort of outlook of gaming, and it was heavily inspired by Tolkien. That being said, if I really wanted to run an in-depth game and all that, MERP would be nice, but I would probably choose this above MERP even if I own MERP. Rolemaster, 3rd edition, 4th edition, or 2nd edition. I've got this box set down here because I think most people recognize the classic blue box set of Rolemaster. Rolemaster was very much a Tolkien-inspired game, to the point that you have your different types of elves that match very closely with the elves of Middle-earth, the various types of men that do the same, and so forth. And this one has a lot of tools to use at the table for solo gaming. You're going to be seeing a heck of a lot of Rolemaster around here. Yeah? But like I said, I would probably use this. But I think my mind, that would definitely probably be a pick I would look at. But my mind got changed earlier this year. Yeah? Against the Darkmaster was sent over by the Open-Ended Gamings who published this. They sent it over for use on the show here. We've looked at it a little bit before. We're going to talk about it a little bit here. For a Middle-earth role-playing game, for group or solo play, this would definitely be my number one pick out of all games now. Yeah? First off, it is a clone of MERP, basically. It's got some elements of MERP, some elements of Rolemaster, some elements of some various other games, but as far as mechanically and how the system runs and everything goes, it's very much on the open-ended D100 system that Rolemaster and MERP share. This game's dedicated entirely to having a Tolkien-style Darkmaster, Sauron, if you will, in the world. And the character creation, everything just smacks of Middle-earth. You've got your different kind of elves, you've got your different kind of men, you've got your dwarves and everything. But the whole game is centered around, there's a Dark Lord in the world, or a Dark Master in the world, and he's trying to corrupt the world, or she, or it, or whatever you want to call it. It's corrupting the world, it's trying to destroy the world, or recreate the world, or just rule the world. So it's up to heroic characters to try to stop this Dark Master from doing so. And, There's lots and lots and lots of tools in here that control the Darkmaster and its minions across the board. The game is the whole mode of this game as an RPG is set up like you're playing in the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, everything's geared toward that. On some aspects, it makes it a game that's not as easy to use for other styles of games, but for a Tolkien style Lord of the Rings kind of game, this is the definite must grab. It's full of great solo tools. It's got a lot of detail. Of course it does, because it's a clone of one of the most detailed, or probably the most detailed RPG in existence. Yeah? So, give me Against the Darkmaster. Give me some source books. Give me some of the source material from here. Maybe the map pack from here, or the Moria pack, or whatever. And let's get out of the Shire and start hunting down some orcs and start hunting down some Nazgul, cause it's on. It's on. Anyways, I know this has been a long episode. I'm not sure I've even covered most of what I wanted to cover. But I think you get a general idea. It's fun to sit around and talk about Tolkien. It's fun to sit around and talk about role-playing games. It's also fun for me to get something to drink and tell you that I'm getting off the camera, and I'll see you guys very shortly here on the Random Encounter Show.
Hey, this is Deathstalker V. I wanted to thank you for watching the Random Encounter Show. If you love tabletop gaming, solo RPGing, or classic video games, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. If you want more of the show, head over to our channel's About page. There you will find our Facebook and Facebook group pages, where you can join in on the fun. Want to help support the show? Make sure to use our affiliate and sponsor links next time you're shopping for your favorite gaming products. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time when we roll for Random Encounter.